It was close to midnight when Pam finally reached the coast. The sound of the waves echoed faintly in the distance, and the salty breeze carried a soft chill that brushed against her tired face. She had spent the last 12 hours flying across 2 states, then sitting in traffic for another hour just to reach the hotel, where she had planned to rest for a few days. Her body ached, her mind was foggy, and all she wanted was a quiet room and a warm shower. The hotel stood tall against the night sky, with golden lights glowing from every window. From the outside, it looked perfect. Polished marble walls, glass doors that opened automatically, and a large fountain at the entrance. Pam pulled her small suitcase behind her, dragging her feet a little as she stepped inside. The lobby was bright and grand, filled with soft music and the hum of late-night chatter. Guests dressed in business suits and evening gowns passed by her, some carrying expensive handbags, others talking into phones. Pam looked around for the reception desk. She had stayed at hundreds of hotels before, big ones, small ones, family-run ones, but this one was part of a well-known chain she knew well. She had chosen it for a reason, though no one there knew who she really was. She walked up to the front desk where 2 staff members stood talking quietly. One of them glanced at her, gave a half smile, and turned back to the computer screen. Pam waited patiently, clutching her purse and the booking printout she had brought just in case. After a few minutes, she cleared her throat softly and said, "Excuse me, I have a reservation for tonight." The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a sharp tone, looked up without much interest. "Name, please?" "Pam Bondi," she said politely. The woman typed quickly, frowning at the monitor. I don't see any reservation under that name." Pam tilted her head slightly. "Could you please check again?" "I booked it online about a week ago. I have the confirmation email right here." She handed over the paper. The receptionist barely glanced at it. "Our system doesn't show anything. Maybe you booked for a different hotel. This is the Seaside Grand." "Yes, that's correct," Pam replied gently. "That's the one I booked." The woman gave a small sigh, clearly impatient. "Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, but if your name isn't in the system, there's nothing I can do." Pam felt a small wave of embarrassment rise inside her. She noticed a couple standing nearby watching the exchange. The man wore a suit that probably cost more than her whole trip. When he walked up to the desk, the same receptionist instantly smiled. "Good evening, sir. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see you again." Her tone was suddenly sweet and warm. Pam stood there quietly, feeling invisible. She had been polite the entire time, but the difference in treatment was impossible to ignore. When the receptionist finished checking in the couple, she turned back to Pam with an expression that said she was ready to move on. "Maybe you can try booking online again. Or there's a cheaper hotel down the street that might have rooms available." Pam took a slow breath. She didn't want to lose her temper. "Are you sure there's no mistake? Could you ask someone to double-check, maybe your manager?" The woman stiffened. "Our manager has gone home for the night." Pam's voice stayed calm. "All right. Could you check if there's any room available now? I'm fine paying again. It's very late." The receptionist clicked around on the screen for a few seconds, then shook her head. "We're fully booked." Pam nodded slowly, trying to hide the disappointment in her eyes. "Okay, thank you anyway." She stepped aside, pulling her suitcase with her. She found a quiet corner near the lobby sofas and sat down. The air conditioning felt too cold against her skin. She rubbed her arms, trying to think. It wasn't the first time she'd faced this kind of treatment, but it still stung. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or carrying expensive luggage. She was dressed simply. A pair of jeans, a loose shirt, and a travel jacket. Maybe to the staff she didn't look like someone who belonged in a luxury hotel. Pam didn't blame them entirely. She knew the pressure that came with hospitality work. But still, something about their attitude bothered her deeply. A hotel was supposed to feel welcoming to everyone, no matter how they looked. That was something she believed in strongly. She noticed a cleaner passing by with a trolley full of towels. The woman gave her a sympathetic smile and whispered, "You waiting for someone, ma'am?" Pam smiled back. "No, just trying to figure things out." The cleaner hesitated, then said softly, "They can be a bit proud sometimes up there." She nodded toward the front desk. "Don't take it to heart." Pam appreciated the kindness. "Thank you," she said warmly. When the cleaner left, Pam took out her phone and opened her email again. Her booking confirmation was clearly there, Room number, payment proof, everything. She even recognized the hotel manager's signature at the bottom of the email. She could have easily called a higher authority, or even used her internal access to fix the situation immediately, but she didn't. Instead, she wanted to see how far this would go. She had come here for a reason. What no one in the hotel knew was that Pam wasn't just any guest. She worked for the same company that owned this hotel chain. In fact, she was one of the regional directors responsible for overseeing staff performance, training, and customer service quality. Her visit tonight wasn't random. It was part of a quiet inspection to see how the staff treated their guests, especially those who didn't look wealthy or important. She had traveled without using her title, dressed simply, and booked the room under her own name without any corporate tags. It was supposed to be a test, one she didn't expect would begin this way. For now, she decided to wait. She watched the staff from where she sat. Every time a well-dressed guest walked in, they received smiles, quick service, and bottled water offered with both hands. But when a tired traveler came through the door or someone asked too many questions, the tone changed. The warmth disappeared. Pam could see it all clearly from her spot. An hour passed. She checked her watch and realized how late it was getting. The seats in the lobby were soft but not made for resting. Her back hurt. Her eyes burned. She thought about calling her assistant to arrange another room somewhere else, but she didn't want to end the test yet. The security guard walked past her a few times, eyeing her curiously as if wondering why she was still there. She smiled politely each time, trying not to look suspicious. Finally, she stood up and walked back to the desk. The receptionist looked surprised to see her again. "I'm sorry to bother you," Pam said softly. "Could you please check one more time? It's possible there was a system error. I can show you the booking ID again." The woman looked annoyed but typed again. "Like I said, we're full. There's nothing available. Maybe you can try calling in the morning." Pam nodded again, though inside she was quietly taking mental notes. Every tone, every dismissive gesture, it was all being recorded in her memory. She thanked the receptionist once more, then walked toward the lobby's far corner where the staff couldn't hear her. She took out her phone and opened the company's internal operations app. A map of the hotel properties appeared, including staff details and occupancy rates. Within seconds, she could see the truth. There were several empty rooms available. The front desk had lied. Pam exhaled slowly. It wasn't just bad service, it was dishonesty. Her eyes softened, not with anger, but with disappointment. These were the same employees she had been hoping to help improve. She wanted to raise the hotel's standards, make the place known for kindness and fairness. And yet, here she was, treated like she didn't belong. She closed her phone and looked around the lobby one last time. The marble floors shone under the golden lights. Guests laughed at the bar, clinking glasses. Everything looked perfect on the surface. But Pam knew the truth now. Perfection meant nothing without respect. She decided she'd stay the night somewhere else. But tomorrow morning things were going to change. She wasn't just going to complain. She was going to make sure no one ever felt the way she had tonight, ignored, judged, and dismissed for not fitting in. As she walked toward the door, the cool air of the night touched her face again. The fountain still splashed softly outside, glowing under the hotel lights. Pam paused for a moment and looked back at the sign above the entrance. The same hotel that carried her company's name, the one she was responsible for. She whispered to herself, "We can do better than this." Then she walked away into the night, her suitcase rolling quietly behind her, knowing that tomorrow would bring a very different morning for everyone inside that lobby. Document: Pam Bondi shamed by hotel staff, then reveals she's the director. Part 2. The next morning, sunlight poured through the hotel's tall glass windows, painting the marble floors with a golden glow. Guests gathered near the breakfast area, chatting and laughing over plates of fresh fruit and pastries. The same staff who had ignored Pam last night were now moving quickly, their voices cheerful, their smiles practiced. Everything seemed normal, at least on the surface. Pam wasn't staying at that hotel anymore. After leaving the night before, she had found a small, quiet inn a few blocks away. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, and the owner had greeted her with genuine kindness. That small gesture meant more to her than all the luxury she'd seen in the bigger place. Now, as she walked back toward the seaside Grand, Dressed neatly in a pale blue blouse and dark trousers, she looked different. Her hair was brushed, her shoulders straight, her expression calm but firm. No one passing by would have guessed what had happened the night before, or who she really was. When she entered the lobby again, the same receptionist from last night was at the front desk, chatting with a coworker. The woman's laughter stopped when she saw Pam approaching. For a brief moment, confusion crossed her face, followed by the same distant politeness as before. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I help you?" Pam smiled faintly. "Yes, you can. I'd like to meet your hotel manager, please." The receptionist blinked. "The manager?" "Yes," Pam said. "I believe he's back today." The woman hesitated, glancing toward a small office at the end of the counter. "He's in a meeting right now. Can I ask what this is regarding?" Pam replied gently. "Just tell him it's a matter concerning last night's guest experience. He'll want to speak with me." The receptionist frowned slightly, clearly unsure what to do, but something in Pam's steady tone made her pick up the phone and call the office. She whispered for a few seconds, then hung up. "He'll be right out," she said finally. Pam thanked her and stepped aside. A few minutes later, a man in a dark suit came out from the office, his tie perfectly straight, his expression composed. He looked like the kind of person who had spent years dealing with guests, smiling even in stressful situations. "Good morning," he said warmly, extending his hand. "I'm the general manager here. I understand there was an issue last night." Pam shook his hand. "Good morning." "Yes, there was. I'd like to discuss it privately, if you don't mind." "Of course," he said, motioning toward his office. "Please come in." Inside, the room smelled faintly of coffee and paper. There were framed photos of awards on the wall, certificates of excellence, and smiling staff group pictures. Pam took a seat across from him, placing her small notebook on the table. The manager smiled politely. "I apologize for whatever inconvenience you faced, Ms. Bondi," she said. He nodded. "Yes, of course. I heard there was a mix-up with your booking." Pam studied him for a moment, then said calmly, "It wasn't just a mix-up. It was about how your staff handled it. Or rather, how they handled me." He leaned forward slightly. "Could you tell me what happened?" Pam told him everything, how she had arrived late, tired and polite, how her reservation had mysteriously disappeared, and how she was dismissed and told to go somewhere cheaper. She didn't raise her voice. Her tone was steady, each detail precise. The manager's smile slowly faded as she spoke. "That's concerning," he said finally. "I'll definitely look into it. I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding." Pam nodded slowly. "Maybe. But I also noticed how differently other guests were treated. People with expensive clothes, jewelry, or cars got instant attention. Others like me were ignored. That's not just a misunderstanding, it's a culture problem." He looked uncomfortable now. "I'm truly sorry you experienced that. I assure you we value all our guests equally." Pam gave a small, knowing smile. "Do you?" she asked softly. The manager hesitated. "Of course." Pam reached into her bag and pulled out her identification card, a sleek black badge with the company's emblem and her name printed clearly. Pam Bondi, Regional Director, Corporate Operations. The man's eyes widened. His voice caught slightly. You're with corporate?" "Yes," she said calmly. "I oversee this region, including your hotel. I was here last night for an unannounced evaluation. I wanted to see how the staff treats guests who don't look wealthy or important. And unfortunately, what I saw was disappointing." He sat back slowly, his confident posture crumbling. "Ms. Bondi, I had no idea." "If we'd known," Pam interrupted gently. "That's exactly the point. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with respect." The room fell silent for a few seconds. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," Pam continued quietly. "But last night showed me that somewhere along the line, this hotel lost its heart. The staff may be following procedures, but they've forgotten kindness." The manager's face softened with guilt. "You're absolutely right," he said finally. "There's no excuse for that kind of behavior. I'll make sure it's addressed immediately." Pam nodded. "I believe you will. But I'd also like to speak with the front desk team personally, not to scold them, just to talk." He agreed at once, though she could see the nervousness in his eyes. He picked up the phone and called for the staff to meet in the conference room. While they waited, Pam glanced around the office again. The photos on the wall told stories of happier times. employees smiling, receiving awards for customer service. Somewhere that spirit had faded. She wondered what had changed. A few minutes later, the manager led her to a glass-walled conference room overlooking the lobby. The front desk staff were already seated, including the same woman from last night. Her face was pale, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The others looked confused, not sure what was happening. Pam walked in quietly and stood at the front of the room. She didn't introduce herself right away. Instead, she looked around at each of them, her eyes kind but steady. "Last night," she began softly, "I came here as a guest. I was tired, polite, and simply looking for the room I had booked. Instead of being welcomed, I was dismissed. My reservation was missing. I was told to try a cheaper hotel. And when I asked for help, I was ignored." The staff exchanged uneasy glances. "I'm not telling you this to embarrass anyone," Pam continued, "but I want you to imagine just for a moment that it wasn't me. Imagine it was someone traveling for the first time, or a family on vacation, or an elderly couple who saved money for months to stay here. Imagine how they would feel." Her voice stayed gentle, but the words carried weight. The receptionist from last night looked down, her eyes glistening slightly. "Hospitality," Pam said, "is not about marble floors, big fountains, or perfect uniforms. It's about people. It's about making someone feel welcome no matter how they look or what they wear." The manager stood nearby, silent, letting her speak. "I saw some of you give wonderful service this morning," Pam went on, "so I know you can do it. But kindness has to be consistent, not selective. Every guest deserves the same warmth." She paused for a moment, letting her words settle. "You may not have known this, but I'm part of the company that owns this hotel. My name is Pam Bondi. I oversee operations in this region." Gasps filled the room. The receptionist's face turned pale as she whispered, "I didn't know." "I'm so sorry," Pam gave a small smile. "I know you didn't, and I'm not angry. I just want this to be a moment of learning, not fear. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we do after." The staff nodded quietly. Some looked ashamed, others thoughtful. "I want you to think about what brought you into this line of work," Pam said. "Most people don't choose hospitality for money. They choose it because they like people, because making someone's day better makes their day better. Don't lose that. That's the real heart of this business." When she finished speaking, the room was silent. Then the manager stepped forward and said, "Thank you, Ms. Bondi. We needed to hear that." Pam smiled faintly. "Good. Because this isn't the end of the conversation, it's the beginning. Starting next week, I'll be spending a few days here to help you all rebuild what's been lost. Together, we can make this place something to be proud of again." The staff looked relieved, even hopeful. The receptionist wiped a tear and whispered, "Thank you for giving us another chance." Pam nodded kindly. "Everyone deserves one." As the meeting ended, she looked through the glass wall at the lobby below. Guests were still checking in, bellboys moving luggage, sunlight filling the room. Life at the hotel went on, but something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, the people who worked there understood what truly mattered. And Pam knew that what had started as a painful night had turned into a lesson that might change the whole place forever. The next few days brought quiet but steady change inside the Seaside Grand Hotel. People moved differently now. The air in the lobby felt less stiff, and smiles began to appear naturally instead of being part of a forced routine. But behind those small shifts was a lot of work, and Pam was right in the middle of it all. She had returned to the hotel early in the morning, wearing a soft cream jacket and a calm, determined look. This time she wasn't there as a guest, but as a director on duty. The word had already spread among the employees, and many of them seemed both nervous and curious. Some whispered as she passed by. Others straightened their posture and greeted her respectfully. But Pam wasn't there to scare anyone. She wanted to understand them. Her first step was simple, to observe. She spent most of that morning sitting quietly in a corner of the lobby with a notebook in her lap. To any guest walking by, she looked like someone waiting for a friend or reading messages on her phone. But her eyes were always moving, gently watching how the staff interacted with people. At the front desk, the same receptionist from the other night was assisting a family with 2 small children. Pam watched closely. The woman smiled this time, genuinely bending down to hand the little boy a small piece of chocolate from a jar. The boy laughed, his face lighting up, and his mother thanked her warmly. Pam made a small note, "Good improvement." More empathy. Then her eyes moved toward the bellboy near the entrance. He was helping a couple with heavy luggage, but his expression showed strain, not frustration. He was polite, even making small jokes that made the couple smile. Pam added another note. Excellent attitude under pressure. It felt good to see these small moments of kindness returning. It was proof that people could change if they understood why it mattered. Around noon, Pam took a quiet walk through the staff areas, the places guests never saw. The break room was small, with a coffee machine that had seen better days and a few tables with scattered newspapers. She greeted everyone she met with a soft smile and simple words. Good morning. How's your day going? At first, people seemed unsure how to respond. But soon they relaxed. One of the younger staff members admitted, "We were really nervous when we heard you'd be here all week. We thought it meant we were in trouble." Pam chuckled lightly. You're not in trouble. I'm here to listen, not to punish. Tell me what makes your job harder. What would make it easier to give guests the best service? That question opened a door. People started talking honestly. One housekeeper said, "Sometimes we get blamed for delays when rooms aren't ready. But the system doesn't tell us fast enough when guests check out." Another added, "We want to help, but sometimes the communication between departments is poor. We don't always get updates from the front desk." Pam nodded, writing everything down. That's exactly what I needed to hear, she said. If the system doesn't help you, it needs to change. Good service starts with good teamwork. She spent hours listening, not lecturing, not giving orders, just listening. It surprised many of them. They weren't used to someone from corporate sitting down at their level, drinking coffee from the same chipped mugs, asking for their opinions. But that was who Pam was. She believed respect had to go both ways. By the afternoon, she'd gathered enough notes to see the bigger picture. The problem wasn't that people didn't care. It was that they had forgotten why they cared. The pressure to maintain appearances, the long shifts, the strict rules, overtime, they had all made the staff lose the human touch that once defined hospitality. That evening, Pam asked the manager to gather everyone in the conference room again. The same group from before came in, but this time they didn't look nervous. They looked expectant, curious. Pam stood at the front holding a folder. First, she said, I want to thank all of you for welcoming me this week. I've watched you work and I've spoken to many of you. I can see that this hotel has a lot of potential, but I've also seen where we can do better. The room was quiet, but everyone listened carefully. The truth is, Pam continued, hospitality isn't just about rooms or check-ins. It's about stories. Every guest who walks through those doors brings a story with them. Some happy, some sad, some tired. You don't know who they are, where they've come from, or what kind of day they've had, but you have the power to make that day better. Even if it's just a smile, a kind word, or a little patience. Several heads nodded slowly. Pam smiled softly. I saw that happen today. I saw kindness at the front desk. I saw patience at the door. That's what makes people come back. Not the view or the pool, but the way you make them feel. She paused and then said, From tomorrow, we're starting a small training program. Nothing complicated, nothing boring. It's called the Human Touch Project. It's about rediscovering the heart of service. We'll learn how to communicate better, listen better, and treat every guest equally. And I want your ideas too. This isn't a class, it's a team effort. There was a quiet murmur of surprise, then soft applause. The receptionist, who had once turned Pam away, raised her hand shyly. Will we be able to share our own experiences too? Like what guests say or what problems we face? Pam nodded warmly. Exactly. That's the point. You know this place better than anyone. I want to hear your stories. The mood in the room shifted completely. There was energy now, real energy, not fear. People started exchanging glances, whispering ideas already. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, Pam stayed behind, looking through the glass wall again. The lobby lights glowed softly against the evening sky. Guests came and went, some tired, some smiling, some frustrated. It was the same scene as always, but to Pam, it felt different now. She thought back to her first night there, sitting in the corner, invisible, judged for her simple clothes. That sting had stayed with her, but maybe it had happened for a reason. Maybe this was how change began, with one bad night that taught a powerful lesson. As she packed her notes into her bag, the manager walked in. You really have a way of reaching them, he said. Pam smiled modestly. People don't need speeches. They just need someone to believe they can do better. He nodded. You've given them that. And honestly, you've given me that too. Pam looked at him kindly. Then we're already winning. The next morning, the training began. It wasn't formal or complicated. It took place in small groups, sometimes in the lobby, sometimes in the staff lounge. Pam encouraged everyone to share their thoughts freely. A security guard talked about how guests often avoided eye contact with him, as if he was invisible. Pam told him gently, "You're not invisible. You're part of the first impression. Your calmness, your smile, that's safety and trust." A waitress shared how she sometimes felt tired of smiling all day. Pam understood. "It's okay to feel tired," she said. "But remember, you're giving someone a reason to smile back. That's powerful." Each story sparked more discussion, laughter, and even tears. For the first time in a long while, the staff weren't just working together, they were understanding each other. By the end of the week, something had changed. Guests began to notice too. A couple at breakfast commented to the manager, "Everyone here seems so friendly. There's something different about this place now." The manager smiled proudly, knowing exactly why. That night, as Pam sat in her room overlooking the ocean, she felt peaceful. The sound of the waves outside was gentle and steady. She sipped a cup of tea and thought about the journey that had brought her here, from being shamed and ignored to helping rebuild the spirit of an entire team. She didn't need recognition or praise. Seeing people rediscover kindness was enough. Before turning in for the night, she opened her notebook one last time and wrote a single line at the bottom of the page. Respect should never depend on appearance. It should be the foundation of everything we do. She closed the notebook with a small smile. Tomorrow, she would keep building what had just begun. One person, one story, one moment at a time. And as the lights of the hotel shimmered across the quiet waves, Pam knew that something far more important than a job review had taken place here. The Seaside Grand had started to find its heart again. Document: Pam Bondi shamed by hotel staff, then reveals. She's the director, Part 4. The sun was just starting to set when Pam walked through the hotel lobby again. The large glass doors reflected the golden light from the ocean, and soft music played in the background. The Seaside Grand looked peaceful, almost perfect, but inside, Pam knew that this evening would change everything. For days, she had worked quietly with the staff, training them, listening to their stories, helping them see their work differently. Now it was time for something more, something honest and necessary. She had asked the general manager to gather everyone in the main conference room that night. Not just the front desk team or housekeeping, but everyone. Servers, guards, cleaners, drivers, and even kitchen staff. She wanted all of them together, under the same roof, because the message she planned to share wasn't just about a few people. It was about the entire place. When Pam entered the room, more than 30 faces turned toward her. Some smiled shyly, some looked nervous, and a few whispered quietly. She could see curiosity in their eyes. They had all heard about her visit by now, but not everyone knew the full story. The manager stood at the side, ready to introduce her, but Pam raised a hand and said gently, "It's all right. I'll start myself." The room fell quiet. Pam looked around, taking a slow breath before she spoke. Her voice was calm but steady, filling the space without force. "I've been here for almost a week now," she began. "And in that time, I've learned more about this hotel and about each of you than I expected. I've seen hard work, long hours, tired smiles, and moments of real kindness." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But I've also seen moments where kindness was missing. I've seen people judged before they were even spoken to. I've seen some guests treated like they mattered less because of how they looked or what they wore. And I know that's not who any of you truly are." A few people lowered their heads. Pam could see the guilt in their faces. But she didn't want guilt. She wanted reflection. "Some of you already know," she continued softly, "that when I first came here, I wasn't treated very well. My reservation was lost, I was turned away, and I was told to go somewhere cheaper." The room went completely still. Everyone knew now what that meant. A murmur ran through the group. Pam gave a small nod. "Yes," she said. "That guest was me." Gasps filled the room. The same receptionist who had once dismissed her now sat frozen, her eyes wide, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. Pam noticed but didn't call her out. This wasn't about embarrassment. I came that night without telling anyone who I was, Pam said. I didn't do it to trick anyone. I did it because I wanted to understand what kind of experience an ordinary guest would have here. I wanted to see how this place feels to someone walking in tired, unnoticed, maybe a little lost. She looked at them quietly, and what I found was painful. Not because of the mistake itself, but because I saw good people acting in ways that didn't match who they truly are. No one spoke. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared down at the table. Pam walked slowly to the center of the room. "But do you know what gives me hope?" she said gently. "It's the way things changed this week. The way you've listened. The way you've started treating each other and the guests with more care. I've seen it in the small moments. A housekeeper offering water to a tired traveler. A waiter remembering a guest's favorite drink. A guard smiling instead of just nodding. Those small moments are the heart of this hotel." Her voice softened even more. "Titles and uniforms don't define us. Our actions do." The manager, standing at the back, watched silently, his face full of admiration. Pam continued, "When people walk through those doors, they don't see your titles. They see your warmth. They remember how you made them feel. That's what hospitality is. It's kindness, not luxury. It's heart, not marble floors." For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then Pam smiled, a gentle, forgiving smile. "I want you all to know something. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here because I believe in this place. I believe it can become one of the best hotels in the region, not because of how it looks, but because of the people inside it." The receptionist finally raised her hand slowly. Her voice was shaky. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't recognize you that night. I judged you. I shouldn't have." Pam turned to her kindly. "Thank you for saying that. But you don't need to apologize to me. You need to remember this feeling the next time a tired guest walks in. Use that moment to treat them with more care than ever before. That's how we change." Tears filled the woman's eyes and she nodded. Pam then turned to the rest of the group. Change doesn't come from fear. It comes from understanding. We all make mistakes. It's what we learn from them that defines us. The staff seemed to breathe again. The heaviness in the room began to lift, replaced by something softer, relief, maybe even hope. Pam took a seat now, resting her hands on the table. "I know working here isn't easy," she said. "Long hours, demanding guests, and sometimes not enough appreciation. But you have the power to make this place different. A guest may forget a fancy chandelier or a perfect photo on social media, but they'll never forget kindness. Never." Several staff members nodded, smiling quietly. Pam then told them about the next step. "Starting next month, we'll introduce a new program. Not about rules or targets, but about empathy. Every week we'll share guest stories, discuss experiences, and help each other grow. I want you all to lead it, not me." The manager looked surprised. "You want them to lead?" Pam nodded. "Yes. Change is strongest when it starts from within." That sparked quiet excitement. People began whispering ideas to one another. It wasn't fear anymore, it was energy. Pam smiled again. "There's another thing I want you to remember. The guest you least expect might be the one who changes everything. It could be a director. It could be someone with no title at all. You never know. So treat everyone like they matter, because they do." As the meeting came to an end, people started clapping softly. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine emotion. A few even stood up, applauding quietly, grateful for the chance to start fresh. After the crowd began to leave, a few staff members stayed behind to speak with Pam. One was the cleaner who had smiled at her on that first night. The only person who had shown kindness when she was ignored. The woman approached her shyly. "I didn't know who you were that night," she said, "but I could see you looked tired. I just wanted to be nice." Pam smiled warmly and reached out to hold her hand. "And you were? You reminded me that kindness still exists here. Thank you." The woman's eyes sparkled. "You're the reason everyone's talking about treating people better now." "It feels different here already." Pam squeezed her hand gently. "That's what I hoped for." Later that night, the lobby buzzed with life again. Guests were checking in. Laughter echoed near the restaurant, and the front desk staff greeted people with genuine warmth. Pam stood near the corner for a moment, watching quietly. The receptionist from that first night smiled at an older couple, helping them find their reservation without a trace of frustration. Pam smiled to herself. This was what change looked like, not in words, but in action. The general manager joined her, standing beside her silently for a moment. "I've worked in hotels for 20 years, he said softly. "I've seen so many programs come and go, but I've never seen a transformation like this, one that came from the heart." Pam looked toward the glowing lobby. "That's because this one didn't start with policies," she said. "It started with a moment of humility and a chance to be better." The manager nodded. "You've done something special here, Pam," she smiled. "No, they did." As she turned to leave, the night breeze from the open door brushed against her hair. The sound of the ocean was soft again, like it had been the night she arrived, only this time the weight she carried was gone. Pam walked outside and paused near the fountain. The water sparkled under the hotel lights, just like before, but now it reflected something different: renewal, growth, and quiet dignity. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. Behind her, through the glass doors, she could see the staff laughing together, helping guests, moving with a lightness that hadn't been there before. And for the first time since she'd stepped into this hotel, Pam felt at peace. She knew her work here wasn't done yet, but something important had already begun. Document: Pam Bondi shamed by hotel staff, then reveals she's the director. Part 5. The morning after the meeting, the hotel felt lighter. The same building that had once seemed stiff and cold now carried an easy calm. The staff greeted guests with genuine smiles instead of forced ones. Even the air felt different. Pam walked through the lobby quietly, holding a cup of coffee. She didn't need anyone to recognize her or fuss over her. She was simply there to see the change she'd been hoping for. At the front desk, the young receptionist, the same one who had turned her away on that first night, was helping an elderly man with his luggage. She was patient, kind, and even cracked a small joke that made the man laugh. Pam noticed it, smiled softly, and kept walking. As she passed by the cafe, she saw two waiters working together instead of arguing like they used to. One of them held the door open for a guest carrying a stroller. These were small things, almost invisible to someone just passing by, but to Pam, they meant everything. She found a quiet corner near the large windows that looked out over the ocean. The morning sun glowed gently across the waves, and the sound of seagulls carried in the distance. Pam sat there for a while, watching the scene outside, thinking about how much could change in such a short time when people were willing to open their hearts. Her phone buzzed on the table beside her. It was a message from the company headquarters. They wanted her to return to the main office for a board meeting the following week. She knew this visit was nearly over. A small part of her felt relieved, but another part felt sad. This hotel had challenged her, frustrated her, but it had also reminded her why she loved her work, why she cared so much about people and their stories. Just then, the general manager walked in. He spotted Pam and walked over with a friendly smile. "Good morning," he said, handing her a folder. "These are the new reports you asked for, and, well, some feedback from the